The summer air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and warm pavement. Olivia Carter sat at the edge of the wooden dock behind her lake house, her feet dangling in the water, watching as the sun set in gold and violet streaks. It had been a year since she left New York, a year since she walked away from her demanding job and the life she thought she wanted. Here in the quiet town of Haven Lake, she hoped to rediscover herself. But she hadn't counted on Ethan Blake. Ethan had been her neighbor since she arrived. Tall, rugged, quiet. He was a carpenter by trade and lived in a cabin across the woods that separated their homes. Their encounters were brief at first. Passing waves, polite nods, a few borrowed tools. But over time, the conversations had deepened. First over coffee on her porch, then late-night chats by the fire pit. There was something about Ethan's eyes. Steady, warm, like they saw into places she hadn't let anyone into in years. That evening, Ethan had stopped by to drop off a handmade bench Olivia had asked for, but they ended up talking for hours. He stayed even as darkness fell and the crickets began their nightly song. The dock lights flickered on, soft and golden. They were sitting side by side, their legs nearly touching. Olivia turned toward him, smiling. "I've never seen the stars this clearly before," she said, tilting her head back to gaze at the shimmering sky. "They're always there," Ethan replied, voice low. "We just don't look up often enough." His words hung in the air, weighty and tender. Olivia's heart began to pound. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was charged. She felt it in the space between them, electric and alive. Ethan shifted closer. "Olivia," he began, then paused. "There's something I've wanted to say for a while now." She looked at him, her breath catching. "Then say it. I think I'm falling for you. And I know that might be unexpected, but I had to tell you." Olivia's mind raced. She wanted to respond, to say she felt it too. But before she could speak, Ethan leaned in slowly, his hand brushing her cheek. Her skin tingled at the contact. And then he whispered, "Wait, please don't move yet." The softness in his voice stunned her. It wasn't just a romantic moment. It was a plea. A sacred pause in the chaos of life. She stayed perfectly still, eyes locked with his. The moment stretched, timeless and fragile. He leaned in and their lips met in a kiss so gentle it barely felt real at first. But it deepened quickly, stealing her breath, grounding her in a reality more vivid than she'd known in years. When they pulled apart, Olivia's voice was a whisper. "That took my breath away." Ethan chuckled, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Good. I've been wanting to do that since the first time you smiled at me." They stayed on the dock until the stars moved overhead and the moon hung low. Ethan's arm wrapped around her, his warmth soaking into her skin. She had been so sure she was here to find herself, but maybe, just maybe, part of that journey was letting someone else in. The next morning, Olivia woke in her bed with sunlight streaming through the windows. She wasn't alone. Ethan was there, sleeping peacefully, one arm still curled around her from where they'd fallen asleep talking. Fully clothed, warm from the fire they'd built, and exhausted from the emotional whirlwind of the night. She slipped out of bed quietly, made coffee, and returned with 2 mugs. When he stirred and opened his eyes, the smile that lit his face made her chest ache. "I thought maybe I dreamed it," he said. "You didn't." They spent the next week slowly peeling back the layers of each other's lives. Olivia told him about the stress and loneliness of her old life. Ethan shared how he'd moved to Haven Lake after losing his sister, how building things with his hands became therapy. They talked late into the nights, held each other in the quiet, and dared to imagine a future neither had planned. But nothing was ever that easy. One morning Olivia's phone rang. It was her former boss in New York. He offered her an executive position at a new media startup. The job was everything she used to want: prestige, high pay, influence. She was torn. "I don't want to be the reason you stay," Ethan said when she told him. "And I don't want to leave something real behind for something that might just be noise," Olivia replied. She went for a walk that afternoon, needing clarity. Along the winding forest path, The stillness of the trees and the rustling leaves reminded her of all the noise she had left behind. In New York, she had lost herself trying to impress people who never really saw her. Here in Haven Lake, Ethan saw her. He didn't want to change her. He just wanted to be beside her. When she returned, Ethan was working in his shed. She didn't say anything at first. She just watched him, focused, present, solid. Then she stepped inside, wrapped her arms around him from behind and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." He turned slowly, cupped her face, and kissed her again, just like that night on the dock. Kiss that said, "Thank you, I see you, you matter." She felt it in her bones. From that day on, they built something together. Not just memories, but a life. Olivia started a creative workshop in town, helping local artists with storytelling and branding. Ethan continued his carpentry but took on apprentices from the community. They hosted bonfire nights, shared dinners with neighbors, and sometimes just lay in bed, holding each other, grateful for second chances. One evening, months later, they returned to the dock where it all began. The same stars shimmered above. The same jasmine scented the breeze. Olivia leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "You know," she whispered, "I think about that night a lot." "So do I," he replied. "That moment, when you said, 'Don't move yet.' I think that's the first time in years I really felt alive." Ethan smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "It was the moment everything changed for me too." And as the waves gently lapped beneath them and the moonlight danced on the water, they sat together in stillness. Not because they were afraid to move, but because they finally understood the beauty of being present in something so rare, so real, so boundless. Love didn't shout. It whispered, "Wait, please, don't move yet." And sometimes that whisper was all it took to change your entire world.